what I've learned is that it's the happiness is in the journey, not, getting the Porsche in this example, because that's going to leave you feeling empty.
Welcome to Hire Yourself Podcast, a podcast that focuses on business and franchising. We are here to help people realize their dreams and control their own destinies through franchise ownership and business success. This twice-a-week podcast will focus on topics to help you achieve your business goals. Each Monday, we will publish an episode that focuses on a specific idea of franchising or business. And every Thursday will be a less structured conversation on a topic Nat and I think will help you live life on your own terms.
Today, we're going to talk a little bit about goal setting. Goal setting is it's that time of the year, Nat, to talk about goal setting. It's one of the most important things you can do. Let's talk a little bit about goal setting from the standpoint of maybe personally. We'll start with personally, and then we'll kind of maybe talk a little bit about businesses. So, Nat, I was getting ready for this podcast, and I was thinking back in college. I was very fortunate to be involved in this business class. It was a leadership class, and one of the things we did is we listened to Zig Ziglar videos at that time, and he talked about in this video goal setting, and they used a study of Harvard graduates, and these Harvard graduates they tracked them. So after they left, they basically kind of followed them for a period of time. And what they found is that the graduate, basically 84% of the graduates, they followed them for 10 years, 84% of the graduates, they didn't set goals when they left school, right? 13% of them had set goals, but really no concrete plans. And then basically only 3% had written goals with concrete plans. 10 years later, the 13% of the class that basically had written plans, they had accumulated twice as much money as the 84% of the class that didn't have goals. Now, here's the kicker, right? The 3% of the class that had actually set goals and put plans in place, they had 10 times as much as the remaining 97%. And that has always stuck with me throughout my life. I've always been a goal setter. Do you set goals every year?
Yeah, I love setting goals. I feel like I read a book a long time ago by Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect. And it just is amazing. Like if you're able to set goals and just be consistent day in and day out, like the compound effect is kind of that penny doubled concept, right? So ultimately where you end up can just be radically different than other people that are just kind of living day to day and not planning on what they're, not being intentional about their life. So I definitely love taking a little bit of time, especially this time of year with, Thanksgiving, Christmas, feel like you get a little bit of headspace, a little bit of breathing room to kind of sit down and think about what you want to accomplish.
Speaking about sitting down and knowing what you want to accomplish, my kids, even at a starting age, I would make them, kind of that December timeframe, we would sit down and I would make them write out goals. They might be 7 years old or 10 years old, but I wanted to get them into the habit of creating goals, but more importantly is putting a plan in place to implement that. One of the things that I've used over the years when it comes to goal setting is Darren Hardy, and I'm a big fan of his, and I've read the Compound book and Compound Effect book probably 10 times. I've given out probably 500 copies of it. I love that book. But one of the tools that I use that Darren has available is kind of living your best life ever. And it's a great way to, one, set your goals, but number two is to track your actions against those on a daily and a weekly basis. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to use that living your best year ever program, but it is a great way in terms of goal setting.
Yeah. I like to also kind of that concept of having that gratitude journal. So, as you're, every day just taking a few minutes and kind of writing down what you're thankful for. I think that helps kind of mentally change you. It helps you mentally, come from a different perspective as you're having more gratitude about, just for the people in your life and the opportunities and your health and a lot of these things that we maybe take for granted. I think that helps kind of, I found that happiness is actually a little bit more in the journey even versus, you might have like this goal, oh, I'm going to accomplish all this. I'm going to buy a Porsche or something like that. What I've learned is that it's the happiness is in the journey, not, getting the Porsche in this example, because that's going to leave you feeling empty. So I love kind of that gratitude journal. I think you might have been the one that kind of turned me on to that, because you do that quite a bit, don't you?
It's funny. I'm kind of chuckling here because I gave all my kids gratitude journals, and you know me, I'm always doing stuff like that. But I gave them all gratitude journals. I gave them a list of daily gratitude morning affirmations. Right, so trying to teach them that gratitude is one. If you really study gratitude, it's tied to success. Right, people that live with gratitude tend to be more successful. And the point you made earlier, they're happier. So I want my kids to be obviously happier and more grateful for what they have. In goal setting, I think the idea is keeping them focused on what's important to them. And to your point, goals isn't necessarily that new Porsche. It's about, hey, listen, I want to be able to lose this much weight, or I want to get to this grad school, or whatever it may be. And it is very much the journey from that standpoint. One of the things, Nat, when I think of goal setting, there's all kinds of different programs out there. Those SMART goals, where you want to go out there and kind of leverage a system. One of the things that I always recommend to people is go read about SMART goals. It's kind of a great way to structure your goals. If you don't use something like Darren Hardy's program, go find something that helps you learn how to do goals the right way, because goals done the wrong way, they don't get you anywhere. But goals done the right way with a system that incorporate, hey, what is specifically you're trying to do? Is it measurable? That kind of stuff. Those are really important things when we're setting goals.
Yeah, I totally agree. I remember in years past, we would actually have New Year's Eve's party with friends, and maybe there would be like 6 or 8 other people there, and we would write down our goals, and we'd put them in an envelope, and then we'd open them up the next year to kind of see how we were doing. There's good examples of SMART goals, but also good examples of goals that were not SMART. So I think over the years we have, it's important to be very specific and all that with the goals. Make them SMART. I like that.
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? So when you talk about goal setting, and most people do their goal setting right around the beginning of or the end of the prior year, or the beginning of the new year, right? So, but it's kind of crazy. So, like if people make New Year's Eve resolutions or goals, right? They say that only 8% of people achieve their New Year's Eve goal, right?
Wow.
Only 64% of them make it a month with theirs. 46% make it 6 months, and again, only 8% make it all the way. So it really kind of tells you to set up the goals the right way so that you have a pretty good chance of success. So you don't fall off the bandwagon early.
Yeah, and I don't remember if we talked about what SMART goals are, but SMART basically, the S stands for specific, the M stands for measurable, the A stands for attainable, the R stands for realistic, and the T stands for timely. So if you can kind of nail that for your goals, then it makes it, then you can actually know that you're being successful, because you have them more quantified, I guess.
Absolutely. So we understand the importance of goals as individuals, but both of us are business owners, right? And I've worked for big corporations. We had our annual business plan. Certainly, from a small business standpoint, it's important to have your business plan, which is your annual goal setting or your objective setting. So tell me, I mean, you've owned what, 8 different types of businesses. Tell me a little bit about goal setting or business planning that you do annual basis for your businesses.
I feel like that's always something I'm trying to get better at, to be honest. This year, we had a fairly good breakthrough year with my senior care company. We took the company through a process based on the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And it actually transformed our company. A lot of it is probably common sense for a lot of people, but it's just taking time to define what the company does, define the different roles that have to, or the different job descriptions, just defining what needs to be done at the business, and then finding, it's kind of that, I guess, to back up, it's kind of like get the right people on the bus and then get them in the right seats on the bus. So We actually ended up firing some people, ended up hiring some people, tightened up job descriptions. Everybody has SMART goals now. We'd have weekly meetings. And what's been actually really fun is that we really have accelerated our growth. Like after going through that process, we were able to, in the next 3 months, grow more than we had in the previous 12 months. And a lot of it just was because the right people were doing the right job and had the right SMART goals, and so they knew what they're being held accountable for. And then we kind of started this process where I kind of liked the fact that we were able to accomplish so much in 3 months or 13 weeks. So now I'm not sure the team loves this, but now we basically are like every 13 months we're going to try to accomplish as much as normal people would expect to do in 12 months. So we're accelerating. It's almost like a 13-week year is kind of the concept that we're starting on now. Getting a little bit more aggressive, and we're actually having set these goals. We're really hitting them, and it's a lot of fun.
So that traction program or the traction book, it sounds pretty powerful.
Yes, it's I think it's especially good for kind of the smaller businesses, franchise businesses. I know guys that are coming from corporate, and I never really had that Fortune 100 corporate background. So that is a little bit different animal. When you're doing Main Street business, it's a little bit smaller. You're trying to build a team. It might be a team of 3 people. It might be a team of 10 people. But it's not hundreds and hundreds of people. So it's really important to take a little bit extra time and make sure that you have the right people doing the right jobs.
Yeah, when I was in the corporate world as a senior level executive, one of the frustrating parts about business plans is I was given the number. So it was like, here's the number you're going to achieve, and now put a plan together. And I think it actually should work the other way, right? Is this is what we plan to do? This is the outcome from a standpoint. But it was a lot of times an artificial objective. There was no way you were creating stuff that you just knew that wasn't going to do it. One of the things when I started my business is I hired a business coach. And one of the things I got from the business coach was this idea of putting together a business plan. And it's much more interactive and much more personalized when it's your own business, right? And he kind of took me through what would be kind of a 10 plan. Basically, you come up with 10 things that would drive your business, 10 things to work on, like 10 marketing things that would all drive your business. And then it would all basically you'd have plans in place for each of the 10 things, and you'd know exactly what those were going to deliver or what you hoped they would deliver. And I've used that for last 10 years, and it has been absolutely amazing. And I heard Bill Belichick used a famous quote, right? Is that, the other day he was talking a little bit about, hey, putting together the plan for a game. You know what? That's really important. That's good. But the minute the battle or the game starts, then it's worthless, right? We have to adjust, and I think that's the important of goal setting is you have your plan in place, and then you have to adjust. And maybe a program like Traction allows you to continue to modify, adjust your course so that you do achieve your business goals.
Yeah, I think when you own your own business, the buck stops here. So it's like you are responsible. So that's a double-edged sword, right? There's really nowhere to hide as the owner, but also then when you're able to grow your business, that feels really good. And it's just a huge sense of accomplishment. I also like it's been a great year for us, just as far as being able to mentor some employees and kind of see them grow into the new opportunities and all that. So I think that that's a big part of it too. I love having my own business. I love kind of mentoring people and seeing them grow and learning new things every day.
Do you have scorecards? So, for example, do you track your team members against their goals from that standpoint? Have something that's kind of measurable that you review with them on a regular basis?
Yeah, part of that traction process was actually come up with a weekly scorecard. And then we have a weekly meeting. So it's been a very effective management tool for me. Each person knows, what their number is. And then at that meeting, they either say plus or minus. And so we know, and then the scorecard either turns green or red. So it gives us some leading indicators of kind of our KPIs or what have you. It was interesting because a couple of weeks ago, like everything was red, and sure enough, the sale, like stuff started slowing down 2 or 3 weeks later. But we knew when it was all turning red on the scorecard that, and we were able to catch that really within a week or two. That the salesperson needed to do more sales calls. The HR person needed to do more recruiting and hiring and training, and we got everything back on target pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about goal setting for personally as well as from a business standpoint. And one of the things that, whether it's personally or business wise, and the reason I brought up the scorecard is because, like when I told you I made my kids create personal objectives and my business objectives. If you ask me to pull out of my wallet, I always carry my goals with me. I have I shrink it down to this little, almost like business card size thing, right? So that I always have my goals with me, so that I own them, and I tried to incorporate that with my kids. They have them on their nightstand and stuff like that. But the idea is that whether it's your personal goals or your business goals, is to keep them in front of you and being there present, opposed to putting them in a drawer and coming back to them 6 months or 12 months later. Go, holy cow! I didn't achieve what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, I think there's definitely kind of that concept. It's like when you set goals and you have them in front of you, you start seeing solutions to how to get there. I've heard in the past kind of that concept of like if you, for some reason, you start thinking about tests, like as an example of putting something on your radar is like, say you start thinking about Teslas, I want to buy a Tesla. And then all of a sudden you start to see them everywhere. That's kind of an example of like when you think about like, oh, okay, I want, one of my goals is, this XYZ this year. Then all of a sudden you start seeing solutions to that goal everywhere just because it's kind of on your mind, or you have your radar on for it.
So bottom line is goals are important. If you want to get somewhere, you got to have goals, and it's very important to make them measurable and trackable, all that kind of stuff, and to follow them. So whether it's your personally or business, that is one of the keys to, I believe, success.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people working with us this year in 2020, I think one thing, just making a goal to kind of stick with, go through the process and learn about franchising, I think is a great goal. Most people are kind of able to go through that process in like a 60 to 90 day window. And then they're kind of strengthening those franchise muscles and learning about the different opportunities that are out there. And they meet a lot of interesting people and learn a lot of things that they maybe wouldn't have thought about.
Yeah. And then when they have their business, they have to have a goals or business plan, right? So
thanks for listening to this episode of the Hire Yourself podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, give us a rating, and leave a comment on iTunes or wherever you're listening to our podcast. Hire Yourself offers some great resources on our website at hireyourself.com. And if you would like more content regularly, follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook. We look forward to you listening again to help you on your journey of living life on your own terms.